Welcome back, everybody, to another season of my draft writings. This season, we're going to be working on the PBR, or Pokemon Battle Rooms Draft League that they're going, the BRDL. I'm partially hosting it, and there are 16 participants, and we're just about to get started. I'm going to be working down the draft list, so it might be a little bit hard to follow because the roster sheet won't coincide with the way that I'm going. So it'll be via the draft list, the draft order. So with that said, we're going to be starting with Jeremy. So overall, I scored Jeremy's team at 38. So if you guys are new to this, so generally I rate these teams out of 5 categories. Now there are obviously a lot more things that go into team building than just these 5 categories, but these 5 categories I feel like are the most basic things that you need to build a good team. My word is not law. It's not the best by all means. It's just what I'm seeing. I've played in a lot of drafts now, so there's a lot of things that I think about. But yeah, so each category is out of 10, so you can get a perfect score of 50. I've actually never been able to give one of those. I think the highest that I've given so far is 45. I can't quite recall. Generally, everybody's kind of in the 35 to 40 range. That's usually where like average, and above average is above 40, and then I'd say a below average, when you're just kind of missing a couple things, is below 35. But generally, the average is in between 35 and 40. So with all that said, out of the way, we're gonna start with Jeremy's team here. So like I said, I scored at a 38 overall, which is above that 35 and in that 35-40 range. So the reason that this is a 38 and this looks like a terrifying team and it's not scored higher is there's a lot of overlapping weaknesses and a lot of overlapping resistances. So like for example, Mega Garchomp, Hydreigon, and Urshifu all have one of their stabs, if not 2, on the Hydreigon, kind of resisted by a fairy type. So that's going to be kind of a lot easier for somebody who has a fairy to, just, okay, well, I'm bringing Florges. That's just how it is. I'm bringing defensive Florges. It's going to be able to deal with 3 of his Pokemon, barring, Surging Strikes and Earthquake, right? It's still going to be able to switch into that close combat, that Dark Balls, Draco Meteor, or that Dragon Claw, Outrage, Scale Shot, whatever Garchomp's got, right? So that is kind of where I'm going to go. I'll break down and get into the other ones that I see here when we get into the defensive category, which is why that defensive category is so low. There's a lot of overlapping weaknesses, so these are things to keep in mind when team building and stuff like that. But starting with his offense, I scored this a 7. Now, he does have a really overbearing looking offensive team. This is definitely an offensive team. It is not meant to, stay still. It's really, I don't think he's going to be chipping you down too much. If you want to call what Galarian Slowking does as chip, you can, but I think Galarian Slowking's a bruiser. He's doing more than just chip damage. Chip damage is what I would consider, like Fake Out, Stealth Rock, Spikes, things like that. He's gonna take a good chunk off of you. I mean, his special attack's not low, so this team really just wants to attack. Now, despite that, I rated this a 7. Like I said earlier, he has this overlapping resistances. So 3 of his best offensive Pokemon are resisted by a fairy type. That being Urshifu, Rapid Strike, Hydreigon, and Garchomp. Now, Garchomp and Urshifu both have another stab move that can deal with fairy types, but it's not just going to be as easy as clicking Close Combat or Scale Shot or Draco Meteor or whatever it is, right? So, with that said as well, it's the offense is really like he's gonna attack. The offense needs to get going. Here's the thing: the offense needs to get going, and the reason that I say that is because his speed tier is a little. It's not slow. But his speed tier is just below, like, fast is what I would say. It's fast team, but they're very weird speed tiers, which I'll mention when we get into the speed tier. That's why he's got that Galvantula for that sticky web. He does have a lot of speed control with Glare, T-Wave on Slowking. and another one. There's T-Wave on Glare on Superior and T-Wave on Slowking, and then the Sticky Webs is what I wrote down for speed control. So so the thing about this offense is yes, it hits hard, but it's kind of got to get going. So like for example, if he gets the lead wrong and he doesn't just lead Galvantula and set up Sticky Webs, or the opponent takes advantage of that, it's gonna be a little bit difficult for him to kind of get back into the driver's seat, because his team is so offensive oriented. Now his team is bulky offensively, but he doesn't really just want to be switching in Urshifu to absorb attacks, or Mega Garchomp to absorb attacks. So what I mean by that is like I just explained, if he gets the lead wrong, he's going to be on the back foot for probably a few turns, unless he makes a really, really hard read, which in most cases is kind of risky. But yeah, so going over the offensive Pokemon, basically every single Pokemon on his team is an offensive. Now, normally what I do is I go through every single Pokemon and their offensive moves and sets and stuff like that, which is what I'm going to be doing here. So bear with me, that might be a little bit long, considering every single Pokemon on his team is offensive, even that Galarian Slowking. So as I told you, I consider him more of a bruiser than a chipper or support type Pokemon. He's generally absorbing and bruising. So without further ado, we got Urshifu Rapid Strike. Now he obviously has that Surging Strike, so that's going to be super important for these teams that want to boost. Corviknight wasn't drafted, but that Surging Strikes would be really, really important to break like Corviknight and things like that. Iron Defense boosting. Registeel was drafted, so Urshifu, obviously he can just close combat, but he won't be afraid to click Surging Strikes, because it's not gonna matter. So I think that's something that might be really overlooked, is crit's pretty annoying. So if you're planning to boost defenses and you're versing this Urshifu Rapid Strike, it's kind of meaningless because it's just critting you. So it's kind of bypassing that, right? So not to mention he's got Unseen Fist, which it's one of those abilities that I always kind of forget about, because you don't really realize it until it catches you off guard. You're like, oh fuck. You go to protect because you burn him or you talk to him and you want a little bit more chip for safe chip, and then all of a sudden he fucking hits you with Surging Strikes or a close combat, or if it's a single strike, he hits you with Wicked Blow, right? So then he's got Stab Close Combat, Stab Aqua Jet, which is phenomenal. That priority is great. So U-turn, and then he's got set up with Bulk Up, and he's got set up with Iron Defense. So Jeremy can get a little bit tricky with that if he wants, which I really would recommend deeper in draft. I think these type of things are very important when you get deep in draft. Not bringing the exact same set. Obviously, some Pokemon are just great to just bring the same set. It doesn't really matter. Urshifu Rapid Strike is probably one of those Pokemon, but I think utilizing these sets that are a little bit wonky later in the draft will help you kind of push through those harder matches, or those matches that you need that win for. So with his coverage, he's got Drain Punch for some little bit reliable recovery. You got all the punches: Fire Punch, T-Punch, Ice Punch, and then you got Poison Jab, Iron Head, Rock Slide, and Zen Headbutt to hit those opposing fighting types. So I mean, Urshifu's got pretty good coverage. This is a pretty good Pokemon to draft, especially since he drafted it first. There is a set that I will mention that was on Smoggin as well, which I think is something that should be utilized again deep in draft. It's his trapping set. Since he does have access to Whirlpool, you can definitely trap some Pokemon that maybe Urshifu doesn't have the greatest match against, but he has the ability to trap a Pokemon for the rest of your team and get it out of the game. Trapping is something that I think is very underutilized in draft as well, and I think is super, super strong. Fire Spin, Whirlpool, that's used a lot in another draft that I plan. So, but yeah, moving on, we have Hydreigon. Now, Hydreigon, pretty standard, nasty plot. He did get access to Dragon Dance, so this is something that's going to help Jeremy with his offense, being able to run a physical or special set. So I hope I see both, because like I said, it's not good to just be predictable and bring the exact same set all the time. In some cases, especially with a Pokemon that's got dual resisted stab on the fairy types, right? So he has Dark Ball, Strike Meteor, Flash Cannon, Earth Power, Flamethrower, Focus Blast, Hydro Pump, U-turn. I mean, he's just got everything, really. you get webs up and you have life orb. I mean, this thing's basically gonna blow holes into your team. So going back to getting those webs up for this team is very important since the speed tiers are kind of awkward. And then on the physical side, he has Earthquake, Outrage, Crunch, Fire Fang, Ice Fang, Rock Slide, Superpower. So he's got coverage in both, so that is something to watch out for, and is something very important to drafting offensive teams. Now, we have Superior. Everybody knows Superior, Contrary, Leaf Storm, Hidden Power. Hidden Power being accessible this draft since we're playing in knack decks, and we also have Pursuit available, so make sure you guys take advantage of those. And then, he has utility moves with his offense. He has Glare, he has Knockoff, he has Dragon Tail. So these are things that are important when somebody is going to be switching into, Superior that's just like, times 4 resistor or something like that. You just Dragon Tail or you Knockoff. You do something before you're going to be leaving Superior out, right? He does have a Coil set, and he does have a Swords Dance set. So these are things, again, I would recommend deeper in draft, not quite early. These are things too, especially if you make playoffs. These are the type of things that you want to do. Now, I know that's going to sound weird, but like, if you can catch your opponent off guard in playoffs, and you can really sneak out that one win with a wonky set, then you can revert back to a standard set if you want. You basically kind of secure yourself in a position where you put the opponent into like confusion, right? The opponent's like, oh, he's bringing sets like this. I don't know what to expect, and then your opponent kind of your opponent gets pressured and starts to make mistakes based off of being worried about what the set might be, right? Moving along the line, we have Mega Garchomp here, a very, very overwhelming Pokemon that I think is not abused enough, especially with the access to Scale Shot. I mean, his stats really closely resemble Zygarde, and guys, Zygarde gets put into Ubers like fucking every time, super fast, right? So with his, I mean, obviously he doesn't have, sorry, excuse me guys, I'm just moving this closer because I feel like I've been talking into a mic that you might not have been able to hear. With his stats closely resembling Zygarde, I mean, you can run a lot of things that Zygarde does. Obviously he doesn't have Glare, but he doesn't have access to an item either. So that's where the difference is in the Ubers to OU. But the thing is he has phenomenal special attack too. So you can make him a physical set, a mixed set. You can make him a set like Zygarde with sub-toxic. I think I actually wrote down. Yeah, sub-toxic Dragon Tail or rest toxic EQ Sleep Talk. Just an annoying set because if you don't have an ice move or you just have Hidden Power Ice, and you've put some special defense EVs into Mega Garchomp, I mean, it's going to be a really big menace to take down. So this is one of the things when I'm drafting. I always make sure I draft some sort of ice type. Or if you can, Freeze Dry is just absolutely phenomenal. So that is something I'm going to get into here defensively in a second. Is Freeze Dry. But yeah, so Mega Garchomp, like I said, he's physical or special. That Swords Dance Scale Shot is absolutely devastating. It will murder a team. It just will. That is something you don't want to invite into. So make sure when you're playing against this team, you don't just invite Mega Garchomp in for free. That's an easy Swords Dance Scale Shot, which will absolutely obliterate your team. So you have Earthquake, Outrage, Stone Edge, and then on the special side you have Fire Blast, Draco Meteor, Earth Power. Oh, and I forgot to mention Poison Jab. So he has good coverage on the physical and special side. A very, very hard Pokemon that's going to be to prepare for. So we're going to move on to Galarian Slowking here, which, I mean, obviously people are going to be like, this is a defensive Pokemon. Well, yeah, it absorbs attacks, but the thing is like, I don't think people realize how much damage Galarian Slowking puts on a team. Forced damage is basically what I'd say. If he Future Sights, you're forced into switching into a Dark type, or you're forced into something that you think could take that Future Sight. And then if he stays in, he's Sludge Bombing or, Fire Blasting, because he's got phenomenal coverage. So it's a really hard Pokemon to kind of deal with and get rid of, especially if it's got Regenerator on and Assault Vest and he's switching out. So Galarian Slowking, tons of coverage, Psychic, Sludge Bomb, Fire Blast, Scald, Ice Beam, Future Sight, and then he's also got set up with Calm Mind, Nasty Plot. And guys, I'm serious, like, this is a set that I hope that I see, because I think it's actually a good set. This is a set that is very prominent with Hypno, is the belly drum set. So you have belly drum, slack off, Zen headbutt, drain punch. And Galarian Slowking has the immense bulk to pull this off. Getting that belly drum off and then being able to drain punch up his health is going to be ridiculous. Or slack off, I mean, whatever the case is. You can't Toxic it. Sure, you can burn it, but like, you might not be expecting to bring Will-O-Wisp for a Galarian Slowking. So that is something that I think will be very good for the Slowking. A set that I think is going to be good for this team is going to be a T-Wave set. So I think it's going to be important for Jeremy here to control speed so that his mons with those awkward speed tiers, Urshifu, Hydreigon, Serperior, Mega Garchomp, and Mimikyu can really sweep a team. So this is the set. It's Disable, Hex, T-Wave, and then whatever coverage. I mean, you could run Future Sight or Sludge Bomb, whatever it is. But those 3 moves, I think, are going to be very, very good for his team in imploring Chip. Now, obviously, the standard Assault Vest 4 attack set is still great, but like I was mentioning, I think controlling speed is going to be more important for Jeremy here. So that is a set that I think is going to be very good for this team. Then we have Staraptor here. I mean, Staraptor, pretty standard. I'm not going to go too deep into it. Not a very deep Pokemon. You know, Reckless, Brave Bird, Double Edge, Close Combat, Final Gambit, U-Turn. That's what it's going to do. It's going to come in, it's going to either blast you or it's going to switch out. So then we have Galvantula, same thing, very standard. You're going to see Sticky Webs, 3 attacks, Buzz Buzz, Bug Buzz, T-Bolt, Volt Switch, Energy Ball. I mean, you could see the awkward T-Wave, but I don't think that would be very great on it. Then you have Arcanine with an enormous... Oh, whoops, I skipped Mimikyu here. Don't want to skip that one because I have a good set for this Pokemon. So you have Mimikyu, like we all know. I was just reading my notes here. I got lots of notes. So Mimikyu, we know the Swords Dance, Shadow Sneak, Play Rough, Shadow Claw set. But I think a set that's not used enough is the Bulk Up set. Mimikyu has good defenses. I don't see why this couldn't be abused. The Fairy Ghost typing's not bad, and it has Disguise. You get that +1 on defense. It's kind of a difficult Pokemon to take down, especially if you don't have Toxic or Will-O-Wisps on your team. But an interesting set that I think would be good for his team if he doesn't need Mimikyu offensively, because I think he needs utility with his offense. Now he has 2 strong defensive Pokemon in Slowking and Arcanine, but I think he needs utility more than the offense, because his team is very hyper offensive. It wants to attack and it wants to get going as fast as it can. Doesn't want to be on the back burner, doesn't want to be in the back, right? Is this Hex Will-O-Wisp Pain Split set. It's pretty annoying. Mimikyu has good defenses, barring I think it's 55 HP. It's got 90 and 105 defense and special defense, so that's not bad. And it's fast, so it's going to get that Will-O-Wisp off, and that Pain Split's going to be super annoying. It's going to take a lot of health from your Pokemon, since it's only got 50 or 55 HP base. And then on your 4 slot, you could run coverage. It gets that Stab Hex. Sure, it doesn't have strong special attack. It's like a knockoff Dragapult, really. But if you needed to burn something, and the opponent has a lot of strong physical Pokemon, I think this would be a pretty annoying set to lead off with or something like that. Like I said, guys, I know these sets might sound awkward, but seriously, these are very important and deep in the draft. Sure, they're not very important early because you just need to get those standard wins early and get that win-loss up and that differential, but like deep in the draft, when people are aware of what you've been doing, how you're playing, and watching your games, these sets will be important, so bear with me on those. Then we have Arcanine, which I almost skipped Mimikyu for. Because I was so excited to tell you all the coverage that he has in the physical and special side, plus his priorities. So you have Close Combat, Crunch, Flare Blitz, Extreme Speed, Play Rough, Psychic Fangs, Wild Charge, and then on the special side, you have Dragon Pulse, Flamethrower, Hyper Voice. And the reason I mention Hyper Voice is because Subs is super fucking prominent in draft. It's so annoying. I'm gonna go on a big rant here about Subs if I don't stop myself, but fuck Subs. I hate them. And then you have Scorching Sands. So he has pretty good coverage in both, and that's important. that's important to be able to run both. You know, if does he get Earthquake? Sorry, but yeah. So it is good coverage in both. The priority is important as well, since his team is got those awkward speed tiers. He has priority in the Urshifu and the Arcanine, which is going to be good. So and he does have quick attack on Staraptor, which I don't think is super viable. But yeah, the priority is good because if he needs that, you know, get out of jail free card on somebody sweeping, he has that extreme speed on Arcanine. It is definitely going to do enough damage. So, and last but not least, we have Zangoose here. Now, I think Zangoose was 4 points. Correct me if I'm wrong. But Zangoose being 4 points, it's a pretty cheap Pokemon for what you get. I think it's a 309 speed tier, which is pretty good. And then 329 attack plus the Toxic boost, so basically plus a Choice Band, is really strong. So 329 times 1.5, what do we get here? You get 493 attack. So that's 493 attack with a Stab Facade, so that's 140 base plus the Stab. This thing is gonna blow some big holes into a team. Typically, I would either see this thing start at the beginning of the game or the end of the game, depending on where he fits in the speed tier of that game. But yeah, not to mention he's got immense coverage. He's got access to Swords Dance, so he could boost that even further. So 493 times 2, you're at basically 1,000 attack. I mean, the Facade's basically gonna one-hit KO everything, resisted or not. So, but yeah, so his Stab Quick Attack, Stab Facade, Close Combat, Knock Off Fire Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, Fire Blast. And the reason I mentioned Fire Blast here is that's going to be important. Fire Blast or Flamethrower. It's going to be important for Pokemon like, you know, Kartana and potentially Ferrothorn, where he doesn't want to Fire Punch in some cases, depending on the chip damage, because that toxic boost is going to be taking a lot of damage from Zangoose. So then he has Poison Jab, Pursuit, Rock Slide, Throat Chop, and Thunder Punch. And so Throat Chop is kind of a move that I think people overlook, but I think is very good. Very good against Pokemon like Primarina, Sylveon, and Como, where you can stop those sound moves. Right? But yeah, so his other set here is another another Belly Drum setter. So Immunity, can't be toxic. You run that Immunity, Citrus Berry, Belly Drum, and then you know you got Belly Drum, Quick Attack. Pretty devastating. So it's similar to like a knockoff Lanoon, right? Because Lanoon gets Belly Drum and Extreme Speed. So yeah, very good set. So offensively, his team is very strong. It really just wants to attack though. So like I said, get those webs up, those glares in, those T-waves in. Get this offense going. It's gonna be hard to stop, but the thing is getting it going. So yeah. Anyways, we're going to go on to defense here. So usually you guys will notice that I spend a lot of time on offense. There's a lot of things to mention on offense usually. And I find the other categories, it's really hard to elaborate on. Some of the things are very game dependent too. So, but yeah, defense, I scored a 6 here. Now, here's where the defense is a 6, okay? You have a ton of overlapping weaknesses. Now, I don't want to like, you know, break apart everybody's team. But like I gotta mention some things, and you know, maybe these people can fix these things, or if they don't want to, they don't have to, or if they don't think it needs fixing, that's totally okay too. But the overlapping weaknesses here is that Fairy weakness. You have 1, 2, 3 Pokemon weak to Fairy here. So you know, a Spexed Fairy type Moonblast is really gonna devastate this team. It's gonna be pretty hard to deal with. Obviously you have the Galarian Slowking, but like you know, just the menace of fairy types is going to be hard. So then you have ice. You have multiple ice weaknesses. I'm going to get to that one last because I want to mention something about freeze dry here. You have a couple electric weaknesses, a couple ground weaknesses, and some rock weaknesses. So again, a lot of overlapping weaknesses. It's going to be a little bit easier for teams to just put on a move, and it's going to be able to cover 3 Pokemon or cover 2 Pokemon. It's going to make team building against him a little bit easier. So last is the ice weakness. So you have like legitimate ice weakness between Hydreigon, Serperior, Garchomp, and Staraptor. So that's 4 already. You run Freeze Dry, that's 5 Pokemon. So that's a lot of overlapping weakness there. You put Ice Beam on 2 Pokemon. 2 Pokemon can cover 5 Pokemon on his team. That's easy team building in my eyes. So that is something that is really, really bringing down his defense here. Now, again, his team isn't defensive. It doesn't want to be defensive. It doesn't want to stay and absorb attacks. It wants to attack. So, bear in mind that when this is a 6, his team doesn't want to do that. So, just because it's a 6, that doesn't make this team bad by any means. There's a lot of teams that I've rated before where it's like the offense is a 10 and the defense is a 5. Because the team wants to attack. That's what it does. It's hyper offense, right? So, but yeah. So, he's got a little bit of a defensive backbone here between Galarian Slowking and Arcanine, but the issue is they're both weak to ground. So, and they don't really, cover each other's resistances. I mean, Galarian Slowking can for sure absorb water attacks, but, it's not, it's not like Arcanine, Serperior, and Urshifu. That's a pretty good offensive trio there between Grass, Water, Fire. They're going to be able to switch between each other. Absorb a little bit of damage, not too much, though. But yeah, defensively, that's really where his team is. His best defensive Pokemon, in my opinion, defensive support Pokemon is actually Serperior. So Serperior having the best defog on the team because his speed, his defenses, his access to recovery. You could say Staraptor, but the thing is you're not drafting Staraptor to use defog. At least I hope not. In my opinion. So, but Serperior being the best defogger here, the best support Pokemon, having Aromatherapy, Defog, Leech Seed, Synthesis, Glare. I think we're gonna see this Pokemon a lot more utility based than maybe what people are thinking. They're probably gonna be afraid of that Leaf Storm Contrary a lot, but I think we're gonna see a lot more utility from Serperior than we're thinking. So, then you have Defog on Hydreigon, Defog, Roost, U-turn. Hydreigon has decent defenses too. He can definitely pull it off. But the thing is, times 4 to Fairy. He's weak to fighting. It's a hard Pokemon in my opinion to run as a Defogger, especially in a draft like National Dex. In a draft where you're using a little bit lower tier Pokemon, I guess Hydreigon's OU now, but yeah, you get what I'm saying here. Anyways, we're gonna move on to so defense was around 25 minutes. I got a timestamp this, guys. We're gonna move on to the speed here, which I scored an 8. 16. So his speed is good. His team is fast across the board. It's just really awkward speed tiers. So I'll read the speed tiers off, and you guys will understand these are pretty awkward. Generally, we know the 100s, the 115s, the 80s. That's kind of I would say once you're above 80, your team's good. It's not slow, but I'd say unless you're hitting the 110, your team's kind of not very fast. I guess it's kind of a hard thing to explain. I would say you want at least 2 Pokemon above that 350, and he's got one here. Barring Galvantula is 346. He's very close. But anyways, the speed tiers I'm going to read from left to right. So Urshifu all the way to Zangoose. Urshifu to Mimikyu, and then Arcanine to Zangoose. So you have 97, 98, 113. Garchomp and Mega Garchomp is 102 and 92. 58, 100, 108, 96, 95, and 90. So kind of awkward speed tiers, but like I said, his team has a good amount of speed control, especially with those sticky webs. Galvantula is a very reliable webber, and he brings an offensive presence, so it's not like you could just it's not like Shuckle where it's setup fodder basically. The person's gonna probably lead Shuckle, infestation you, maybe encore you, shit like that, right? Galvantula can attack you, so he can thunder, he can bug buzz, and it hurts. So very reliable webber. But like I said, he has good speed control in other ways with Glare on Serperior, being able to glare those ground types, things like that is going to be really strong for this team. And then that T-Wave set I mentioned on Slowking, I hope that I see, because I think it's actually really, I think it's a very strong point to this team to have that Slowking set and help his team out. And not just rely heavily on webs. I've seen a lot of teams crumble trying to set up webs and base their team around webs and their speed tiers around it. So speed is an 8. He has a good speed tier team. It's just at a very awkward speed tier where it's not super fast, but it's not slow. So Overall, I think he's going to do really well against teams that are a little bit slower than him, like really well, since he won't have to set up webs. But teams that are faster than him, it's going to be a lot of pressure to set up those webs or bring those T-wave sets, T-wave/glare sets. So moving on, we're going to talk about hazards next, which I scored a 7. Right, my timestamps all over the place. Jesus. So hazards, like I mentioned, he has defog on a few Pokemon here: Hydreigon, Serperior, Staraptor. Although I will say defog is best, in my opinion, is going to be best used on Serperior. I think Serperior is the best Pokemon to be used as a support Pokemon here, since he only needs to run one attack move. He doesn't really like. I would really not care to run Hidden Power. I would just run Leaf Storm, Glare, maybe Leech Seed, Aromatherapy, or Synthesis Aromatherapy, something like that, just to make sure his team's healthy. Urshifu's not getting burned, Garchomp's not getting burned, Hydreigon's not getting T-Wave, things like that. I think would be important for this team, since it's very hyper offensive, wants to attack, it doesn't want to be slowed down. So and then he has only rocks on Mega Garchomp, which I think is a huge hit to this team. It's gonna allow people to abuse things like Focus Sash, barring they think that Jeremy wants to run 4 attacks on Mega Garchomp, but I think he's a lot of times going to be forced to run those Stealth Rocks on Mega Garchomp. Now he has hazards with Sticky Web, and I usually when I talk about hazards, I usually include things like Glare and shit like that. So he has good options for like Will-O-Wisp, T-Wave, Glare, and then of course the Sticky Webs. He has good hazards. His hazard removal, in my opinion, is really not that great, and not having a like. I mean, Mega Garchomp's a good rocker, don't get me wrong, but I feel like on this team you want 4 attacks on Mega Garchomp. So as a reliable rocker for this team, I don't think Mega Garchomp is suited. I think he might need another rocker. You could potentially get away with trading Zangoose, although I think Zangoose is a pretty good wall breaker for this team, since it would really help Urshifu clean up, Staraptor clean up. So a little bit difficult spot for this team, but I think he needs a reliable rocker here. And last but not least, we're going to talk about momentum. So momentum is his strongest point, in my opinion. 32-24. Momentum, like I said, being his strongest suit here. So once this team gets going, it's really difficult to stop. So you get that Sticky Webs up, and you're kind of on a back foot, like you don't have a defogger in place already, so you got to switch into the defogger. This is going to allow Galvantula to either Volt Switch or Hard Switch out into something that could wall break, start chipping you down. And once Jeremy gets that started, it's your demise. Once you've let him get webs up once and you don't have a defogger ready on standby, like right there, that's where the wall breaking, the big bruising happens. The double edge Brave Bird Staraptor's coming in, the heavy hitting fucking Galarian bruising Slowking, Mega Garchomp comes in and Swords Dance, and then you're like, holy shit, well I'm just gonna lose because I tried to defog, things like that. His momentum is, once the ball rolls, it's not stopping. So a very, very strong snowball effect on this team. Lots of setup, bulk up on Urshifu, Nasty Plot on Hydreigon, Leaf Storm Contrary, Swords Dance on Garchomp, Swords Dance on Mimikyu, bulk up on Mimikyu. Just absolutely wild amount of setup here and wild amount of snowball potential. So I think Jeremy's team and games are going to be the exciting ones. Now, this can go either way, though. I think he could potentially 6-0 a team, or he's going to get, blasted like 4-0 or something like that, because he was trying so hard to get webs up and he just couldn't get them up, or something like that. Or the speed tier, he was just below the other team's speed tier. So I think these are the games to watch, though. I think his games are going to be very exciting. His team is very explosive. So, who doesn't like watching Mega Garchomp? Who doesn't like watching that Pokemon succeed finally, right? That's what I'm saying. But yeah, anyways, overall, his team's a 38. Like I said, you guys, when you're in that 35 to 40 range, I feel like that's, basically where most people are going to reside. The people who just have that, extra brain for, you know, drafting, they're going to be in that 40 plus range. You know, nothing's wrong with being in the 35 to 40 range. Lots of people in there. I'm in there all the time, right? So it's just how it is. Not everybody sees everything when they're drafting, right? But yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying these. I'll leave a link below for the doc to the draft, so you guys can check out the teams if you want. Also leave a link to PBR so you guys can follow the community and follow us through our draft. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. And yeah, we're going to be moving in the draft order, so if you want to know who's next, just go ahead and ask me. All right, we'll see you guys on number 2.